As this year we will see the release of the PlayStation 5, there are still plenty of PS4 bangers that we got around the summer, of course, being Last of Us Part 2 and the most recent Ghost of Tsushima, which I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys have played and probably beat by this point. And if you haven't, I would definitely make sure you beat the game before you come and watch this video, because I will be talking about the end of the game, and more specifically how even though there was a lot of historical aspects to this game that were pretty correct and pretty accurate, there were a lot of liberties taken by, of course, Sucker Punch to make an overall fun experience and tell their story. However, the end of the game, while it may seem that it definitely is something that is rewritten from history, it does seem like it is a bit more historically accurate than we're all led to believe. What is going on, guys? It is your boy TKD123 here, back in here at PlayStation Source, and we're going to talk about how the end of Ghost of Tsushima isn't really that far-fetched from the actual history of the Mongol invasion. Now, of course, let's lay out both endings to the invasion from a game perspective and an historical standpoint. So, of course, Jin gets word that there is a massive storm coming, which he knows will force the Khan to put all of the other ships that are Mongol ships into the port of Izumi. That way they can weather the storm and not have a bunch of ships out at sea that are usually there to make sure that no one leaves Tsushima. And so Jin and his friends come up with a plan to be able to infiltrate and strike them at the port while they are all there in one space, and be able to take out the majority of them and potentially kill the Khan in one fell swoop. And of course, we know the end of the game, he does so using the storm as his aid to be able to make sure that everyone is in one port and one type of location to be able to kill them all. And of course, we know the rest is history. We already know how the game ends from that whole point. Crazy ending. But the actual real world history is something that we did cover on Road to Ghost of Tsushima, the podcast series that led up to the release of Ghost of Tsushima. You can check out this YouTube card up here if you want to watch the full episode. This is us basically going over the real history of the Mongol invasion and how Ghost of Tsushima is going to potentially, use from this. And it actually used a lot, and a major part they use is how the Mongol invasion eventually ended on both standpoints, on both invasions. However, it's not as blaringly obvious as it might seem, and it's quite clever how they actually did it. So what actually happened is that the Mongols were eventually repulsed thanks to an unseasoned typhoon in late November of that year. The storm all but destroyed the Mongol fleet, effectively ending the invasion. The Japanese refer to this phenomenon as a divine wind. In Japanese, the word is kamikaze. It perpetuated a belief that Japan's divine favor would keep the island from ever being conquered by a foreign power, a prediction that would hold up until World War II. So that's how it actually ended. It wasn't some dramatic battle, it wasn't some insane fight, it wasn't that the samurai were able to overcome and overpower the Mongols. It was really just a really fortunate typhoon that was able to completely blow away and destroy the Mongol fleet, which ended the invasion. So I know now you're asking, okay, how does this all make sense? Like, yeah, okay, there was a storm in both instances. Of course, in real life there was the huge typhoon, and in the game there was just so happened to be a storm that allowed Jin to be able to know that they would all be ported at Port Izumi. But how does this all connect? How does it all make sense? And we had the great and powerful, of course, Nate Fox of Sucker Punch come on the Kind of Funny Games cast for the spoiler cast of Ghost of Tsushima, and he laid down this little tidbit that was asked by Imran Khan, the homie. Shout out to Kind of Funny, shout out to Imran Khan, shout out to the whole panel that was here. You know what I'm saying? I will link it below in the description if you want to hear the full thing. But here is what he replied to when he was asked about this same concept.
In that vein, you kind of mentioned history a little bit. So I ended up reading before when I found out I was going to review the game. I ended up reading about the Mongol invasion of Tsushima and all that. The the story in the game is fictitious, I guess. Obviously,
Yes, it is.
but in the actual history, samurai, the Mongols mostly got wiped out by a storm. When I finished the game, this may be like my brain just going reaching for interpretation. But I was like, oh, was it just that's what Japan told people because they didn't want people to know about Jin? Or was that just not even a thought in Sucker Punch?
Well, because you know what the real history is, I bet you saw a lot of what was going on. The end of the game, actually, there is a storm, a huge wind that comes in that forces all the Mongol boats into a bay that gives Jin this opportunity to slay them all. On top of that, Jin's kind of spiritual connection to the island is largely referenced by wind, this divine wind.
Mhm.
That is playing into Kamikaze as well. If you look at his saya on the Sakai steel, there's lightning and storm winds on it as well. This is all referencing the real event that took down the Armada. Even though in our fictional story, it is Jin and Shimura and a lot of people risking themselves to destroy the Mongols. If you know the history, you can see the connection.
Mhm.
So there we go. Super interesting stuff. Honestly, when I was a few weeks back, I was completely blown away by how they actually were able to make that all make sense and make it all incorporate. But I want to run through top from the bottom of the list and the 3 things that really tie this connection to how it all connects in terms of the game's ending and how the actual real life event ended, of course, with the divine winds that set the Mongol ships to complete this array and destroy and everything. So first off here, of course, he does cover the storm, which, like we said before, was able to make sure that the Mongols were in one bay, as they did not want to be out on the ocean front when there was a storm out there. So obviously that one is a clear one, and obviously gave the opportunity for Jin and his friends to be able to go and attack and do the final strike against the Khan and the Mongols, right? But the second one here as well that I wanted to highlight is the Sakai Storm Sword. So this specifically is going to be the first, main default type of, katana that Jin has, and it is called the Storm of Clan Sakai as well. So this is just the one that's default. I honestly rocked this one a lot throughout the game just because I love the design and everything, and like I loved how it looked and all that. But when you look more closely into the details, you can see that on the end of the I guess you would call it like a sheath of the katana where you put it back when you're not using it, there's a bunch of like white clouds over on the ends of it, and there's blue that I think is like reminiscent of like the blue water of the ocean that would happen in a typhoon type of thing. And on the actual hilt type of area, on like the, I guess, wrist guard, you can call it, kind of sorta, the like flat type of disc near the end of the hilt and stuff like that, there is lightning bolts on there as well, which of course could be a reference to Sly Cooper. That's cool, or to like Infamous, you know what I'm saying? But it is really cool to see that it's actually referencing the typhoon that was able to take out a lot of the Mongol fleet in real history. And this whole thing, called the Storm of Clan Sakai, is all intentional to be able to, just cue those that know the history that yes, in a sense, Jin is the storm that eventually takes out the Mongols. And lastly here, I think the last example of this tie between the story of Ghost of Tsushima and the real ending of the actual Mongol invasion is Jin's connection to the wind. As we know, throughout the entire game, you are being guided by the guiding winds. And of course, in the early, hours of the game, I think it was the first like 30 minutes of the game, where you learned about, Jin's passing of his father and different stuff like that. Jin asks his father to guide him throughout his journey to get Lord Shimura back. And so, in that one instance, I guess it's more positioned that the winds represent, Jin's father guiding him and stuff like that. But I love that it can also represent the way that, Jin and the winds are tied in a very, very divine way, that, Jin can be guided and, be, led to different places of worship and stuff like that, and different shrines and everything. And eventually he will be a part of the winds that take out the Mongol fleet. I think that's a very, very cool way to phrase it. Very, very cool way to, put it up there in terms of having these two different concepts melded together. I think it's great. But most important, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. How do you guys feel about this whole concept? Did you pick it up while you were beating the game? Did you guys see the connections between, the, Storm of Clan Sakai and the actual storm that was happening in the game and all that? Let me know your thoughts down in those comments below. And make sure also, while you are down there, to check out our description where you can find links to our Twitter, Discord server, as well as an Anchor link. That way you can listen to our long form content and podcast format. Those, of course, being Road to PS5, where we go over PS5 news and topics until the release of the PlayStation 5, and other Road to podcasts that are all dedicated to your favorite PlayStation IP. Like the video if you enjoyed it, ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload or stream, and hit that join button or link in the description to become a member of the channel with the $5 King tier or the $1 Prince tier, just like the homies Owen, Bashful Brody, and Caleb Kaiser did. Much love to the homies. Big ups to y'all. Stay subscribed to PlayStation Store to keep up with the latest and greatest in PlayStation. Thank y'all for watching, and as always, greatness awaits.
Oh, man.